Your life can be full of inspiration and magic, and you don't need glass slippers to get there. Welcome to the podcast for real life heroines with author, speaker, and coach, Susanna Liller. Join us as we work with key elements of personal development to assist you in hearing the calls that life has for you. Be inspired, be empowered, and be encouraged. Let's start today's episode with your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast for real life heroines, where I, Susanna Liller, get to interview real life heroines who are on their own unique heroine's journey to discover more about who they are and their true selves by answering calls and going on journeys and facing challenges, but learning, developing, evolving into a larger version of themselves than they were when they began. And of course, we go on many heroines' journeys in our lifetimes. And my guest, who's going to talk about hers today, is Jeannie Sullivan. Welcome to you, Jeannie.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Very excited to have you here. And Jeannie, I'll just say a few words. We're going to be giving you her information at the end of the podcast about how to learn more about her and her website. But she is a psychic. She's a tarot card reader, a master Reiki practitioner. She is, what else, Jeannie? Well, she's a survivor.
I am. I am very resilient and I am a survivor. That is for sure.
Right. And
that is for sure.
Certainly because of what caused her to develop her resiliency and her survivorship, she gets to have the heroine's badge all over her. So we're going to talk about that. I just want to read a little bit about from your bio. That you began your spiritual journey, which is what we really want to talk about today, because we're going to hear about what got you on the spiritual journey. But you began that journey in 1996, and you began it by studying tarot and soon branched out into holistic energy modalities. Always been intuitive. You told me even as a child you were.
Yes.
And you would always read people. And I'm going to ask you in a little bit kind of what that's about. And then you have been in education, the field of education, for about 30 years, I believe.
That is correct.
Which is going to be, we'll talk about that because that's prompting another call for another heroine's journey. And so you also, and because of your teaching experience and developing all the curriculum that you've had to do, you are able to and have developed curriculum for teaching metaphysical courses and all kinds of things, which again, we'll talk about that too. So just welcome. Jeannie and I both live in Maine. We're very lucky to live in Maine. And I'm going to tell you in full transparency that Jeannie's going to do a reading for me in a couple weeks. So I'm looking forward to that, Jeannie.
Yes, it'll be a lot of fun.
And you know, the way I think about reading and getting readings, however they are, tarot reading or another kind of reading, to me, it's acquiring data, accessing another.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why would I just, limit myself or contain myself to what I can see in my real world and learn and read? Why not access other ways of getting information? So, and you can always choose to disregard it.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
yeah. I always tell my clients to take what resonates with them and leave the rest. Right. And a good reading, whether that's tarot cards or mediumship, is confirmation. It's oftentimes I hear, oh, I was thinking about that, or that's how I feel. And like I said, a good reading with someone who's worth their salt. It should be validating. It should be certainly not coming out of left field. You should feel good about the reading and really be able to connect with it. Yeah. No matter, like I said, whether that's tarot or mediumship or Akashic records or any of the other multitude of readings that you can have.
Right, right. And so you're really, I think you're talking about it resonates with you. You get a feeling inside that, yeah, this is,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
definitely, which
yes,
we have experienced. So great. Okay, and so now I'm prompted to ask you, so of all the types of readings that you do, or the different modalities you do, metaphysical work, do you have a favorite?
I have a couple favorites for a couple reasons. I love doing energy work, and I love doing spiritual life coaching because it's so empowering for the people who are either sitting in the chair or laying on the Reiki table while they're getting an energy session, in part because I'm receiving just as much of that energy as the person who's laying on the table or sitting in the chair. Mm-hmm. And it's in that way, it's a really beautiful flow with spirit. And I also like doing readings because I love the energies that I connect with and the conversations that I have with beings on the other side, as well as the client who's sitting across the table from me or in the Zoom room or whatever. And I'm really, really fortunate to be able to do what I love. I love doing this. It's really interesting to connect with the different kind of energies that are on the other side, because some can be really, really profound and very, very ancient, and it, of course, is all high vibrational energy. So it really depends on what being you connect with depends on what kind of energy that you'll be receiving. And it's just such a gift to be able to tell people, not necessarily what they want to hear, but tell them that about their relatives or their ancestors on the other side, what they're doing, what they're feeling like. And when you cross over and go to the other side, you feel very, very different and react very differently than if you were still in human form. And I think that's the surprising part for a lot of people.
And I forgot to say that you are a spiritual life coach, a spiritual coach. And yeah, that's interesting. And so it prompts me to say that what got me to publishing my book, where I was kind of in a place where I was stuck, and I ended up sitting next in a retreat to a spiritual life coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who turned to me when I was explaining, here's where I am and the book is ready, but I don't know what to do and where to go. And she just, bam, was able to give me advice right in the moment that steered me in the right direction, that helped me publish it. So I am such a believer in that kind of spiritual help and counseling. So, okay, well, so you do this work, but you had a background that wasn't the easiest. And it really, oftentimes, that's the case for heroines on the journey. What sends them on their journey is something not so much fun happens.
Exactly.
And you and I, it's kind of around the same year. I mean, when you told me what kind of kicked things off, you got divorced, which Correct. In 1996, well, I was separated in 1997 from my ex-husband. So, and I know you told me that you were a battered wife.
That is true too.
Which is why you said, this is it, I've had it, and left. But then how did that kick you off on your spiritual journey? Because it's around the same time that happened.
That's correct. And I was 26 when I got divorced, and I made a very conscious decision that no matter what, I was going to get better, because I couldn't live in that energy anymore. I wanted better things for me. I wanted to heal the parts of me that needed to be healed. And so I started therapy. I've been in therapy most of my adult life. And It kind of coincided really well with my spiritual journey. Like you said, I had started with tarot. It was something that was familiar to me. I knew a little bit about it. I had kind of read for other people for a really long time. And then that kind of morphed itself into learning how to do Reiki, because again, that was something that was familiar to me. I'd heard the word at least. And I have an interesting story. I have a friend of mine who is a Reiki master, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this. And he's like, stick out your hands. And so I stuck out my hands, and he put his hands over mine. He goes, what do you feel? So I feel warm and tingly. And and I said, but that's you. And he gets in my face. He goes, no, Jeannie, that's you. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. So that I got my level. I'm now a master, but at the time I was a level 1. And a friend of mine asked me if I'd be interested in learning how to do Primus activation healing technique. And that is a modality that works with the Earth's electromagnetic field and the universal energy, and really does an excellent job of balancing, grounding, and centering you. And I fell in love with it. And then that led to a few years down the road to my own shamanic practice that informs my energy sessions when you have a session with me, or when a client has a session with me. It's just been one foot in front of the other for quite a while. And like I said, I made that conscious decision, and there certainly have been ups and really hard downs in between. And I think that makes us really good energetic providers, because who sits across the table from me now and throughout this entire journey doesn't have the exact same story that I do, but a very similar story than I do, because they can resonate. They don't necessarily know why. Well, they want a reading, but they resonate with me because I can feel and know what, to a certain extent, what their journey has been. So they on an energetic level somehow understand that I understand it, that there's no judgment, that there's no any of that, that is just a loving supporting, understanding situation.
Yeah. And, I think maybe can you explain what Reiki is to people?
Sure. It's a life force chi energy that we all have in our body. It was created the lineage that I have done is called Usui Reiki, and that it's a lineage that has come out of Japan. And for centuries, the only people who could do Usui Reiki was true people who live in Japan. And then this woman who is of Japanese descent, her parents moved right before World War II. She brought it out from Japan. She went back. There's a very interesting story about that. Good thing that she's as persistent as she is, because finally they're like, fine, we'll teach you how to do it. And so she did, and then she brought it to the States. So that's how Usui Reiki became worldwide and world known. But it is a life force chi energy that is accessed through universal source itself, and it's used to balance and calm and clear your energetic systems, because we all have that life force energy within us that kind of gets gunked up with life. And you can clear it yourself to a certain extent, and you can kind of up the ante, so to speak, and go to a energetic practitioner who can really clear out, because we have been attuned to Reiki or Primus or other modalities as well.
Right. And you can, just like he did with you can feel kind of like a tingling in your fingers, even if you haven't training or anything.
Yes. And that's a really good point, because everybody can do Reiki. If you've ever helped somebody feel better, giving them a hug or giving them support, that's a form of Reiki. The only difference between that and me is that I've been attuned directly with that kind of energy, so I can get right on the radio station, so to speak, where yours might come in a little bit fuzzy, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it either. Right. If you are able to energetically help people feel better, that is a form of Reiki, and we all do it all the time.
And I understand. So that lineage, so she trained people who trained people, and one of those people gave you that same training. So it really is connected. Yeah. Which makes it more powerful. Yeah. Well, so Jeannie, there you are. So you go through a divorce, which was not fun and a difficult time, but at the same time discovered this wonderful path that you took and you learned, and as you say, one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the heroine's journey. All right. And then when you talk about ups and downs, boy, but we should also say 2010, you opened your business. You officially
Correct.
opened Heartfelt Energies.
Correct.
So that was pretty big. You
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm hanging my shingle out. I'm going
Yes.
to do this. I'm owning it.
Yes.
That's
And
big.
that in and of itself was very empowering. And that has been a steady, I don't want to say climb, because that implies that it wasn't easy. But it's been a steady increase since 2010.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you are, being who you really are, sharing your gifts. And then 2014, as you
Hit with a bang.
life fell apart.
Yes. Yes.
So what was that about?
So in 2014, from an energetic standpoint, there was this energy that was pummeling Earth. It was called Grand Cross energy. And some astrological signs made it through relatively okay. Some did not, and mine was not one, and I am not an exception to that. It was hard. It started in 2013, in a matter of probably about 6 or 7 months. It started with me. I lost my cat that I'd had for quite a while, and we were really bonded. She was a spiritual being in and of her own right, and we were really close and tight. So that happened in the fall of 2013, and then my mother passed away in March, and shortly thereafter, I had lost my job, and because I lost my job, I had lost my housing because I couldn't afford the rent anymore. So by May 15th, May 15th, 2014, I moved in with a friend of mine for a little bit. And God bless her. She continues to be a really, really good friend of mine to this day. But I wasn't finished with the slide yet either. Like I said, after my mother died, I lost my job, and I was couch surfing for about 4 or 5 months. And
You were homeless.
I was homeless. Yeah, I was homeless. And I had really good friends in that time. I have a friend of mine who took my stuff. Like I said, my other friend took me in for a little while. And it wasn't until October that I was able to rent a room, and I had a part-time job that led to another part-time job. And then slowly over time, I got on my feet. Not that I ever want to redo that time in my life ever. But it taught me just how resilient I was, just how powerful I was. It stripped a lot of entitlement, not all of it, but a lot of it. And in that process, I had a very, very powerful spiritual experience. I decided that I was done. I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. I was going to be very neat about it. I packed up my car and was going to leave it. My parents had a cottage on a lake, and I happened to be there.
You're talking about done as in
done, like I'm gonna go in the woods. I'm gonna slice my wrist, and the animals can have me. Lunch for them. And so packed up my car, and I decided that this particular day, all I remember was it was a nice sunny day. I can't remember, like July, August, but it was a nice sunny day. I do remember that. So I'm like, okay, today's it. I'm done. I'm going to just do it today. Because I've been thinking about it for a while, and there was definitely a suicide plan. And I got up to get the knife. And so I stand up and start walking to the cupboard, and I hear, and I'm the only one in the cottage. That's it. I'm it. And I hear, sit down, very sternly. And I'm like, whatever. I advise that you never go whatever to the universe. Because I hear again, even more sternly, sit down. I'm like, okay. So I sat down, and my guides and my spiritual team and the universal source itself said, if you want to do this, we will let you do this. We will not prevent you from doing this because you have a choice in this. However, if you decide to do this, we will take you back in another life. When you cross over and you do your work and you come back, we will bring you right back to this point again, and you'll have to make this decision again. And I'm like, insert expletive here. I am never doing this again. And I made that decision that, nope, if I have to do this, I'll ride it out in this lifetime, so I don't have to do this again. And I did ride it out. And I'm in a very different place, certainly since 2014. And it's been definitely a hero's journey. I have earned my heroine journey badge, but I've also earned my superhero cape through that. Like I said, I've learned so much about myself, and I've learned to be resilient, and I've learned to be creative, and I've learned to think outside of the box. And that in and of itself, because when I was in there, in the midst of it, I had to figure out if I was going to eat that day. Where was I going to sleep that day? Was it good weather? Was it getting cold? What do I need to do? And I've gotten into the habit of making a million decisions in a day. And that kind of gets me in a little trouble at work, at teaching school, because I'm like, okay, this needs to be done. Let's do it. And sometimes that is a tad frowned upon because I'm not following the chain of command. Like, I see a problem, I'm going to fix it because it's right in front of me, and then we're off. And they're like, that's a cue.
So Jeannie, just in case there are people listening that are in a deep black hole like you were in, what can you say that would, how did you, okay, obviously you had an intervention, a divine intervention, and that would slap you out of it, right? But even then you had to work to get yourself back on track. And is there anything you can say about what really helped you during that time as you were working to get back on track?
I was fortunate enough to realize that faith was being interjected in my life, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now. The universe never left me, never left me. Yes, I was in this situation, but money would appear when I really, really needed it. That felt like out of the blue. I'd had friends would stop by and they would feed me and leave me leftovers for the week, so I'd have something to eat for a few days. Something would happen and it'd be very serendipitous. And so even though I felt the universe brought me down, probably with my help, to my knees the entire time they were doing that. So clearly I would learn this lesson. They were also infusing me with all this help from the other side, as well as the humans in my life too. I had a lot of help from the other side. When the slide was really happening, I had an interesting encounter with an ex-boyfriend I didn't know who had crossed. And that in of itself is an interesting story, to find out how I found out that he had crossed, because he kept appearing in my bathroom. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And then one thing led to another, and I had realized he died in a car accident. Like, oh, and he really helped out and has never really left. So there were lots of beings on the other side who have helped, but there was also a lot of help on this side too. Right. And, getting jobs at the right time, being at the right place at the right time, having people help me out. So if you can, when you're in that dark, dark place, double down on your faith. And I know that is not an easy thing to do when you're in the middle of a storm. But if you are able to see what the universe is providing you, yes, you're in this spot, but if you can look at all the stuff that is coming in for you at the same time, I found that helped out immensely. Yeah. And there's no time like the present. If you can start a gratitude practice, that is really a time to do that, because when you are grateful, even for the smallest things, like thank you for my friend who just dropped off a hamburger or whatever, the universe will give you more things to be grateful about.
Yeah, that was in my mind as you were talking, because you were really able to see the things that were good, even though you were in the midst of a difficult time. And yes, I agree. I believe what you believe, that universe, the God, whatever you want to call, something greater, is always with us and never does leave us. And so, you know, in a way, it's like it's there. So turn on the switch, or realize, even if it's just a teeny bit of faith, I think it helps.
Yes, yes. And all you have to say is help. You don't even have to ask anybody specific to pray to. If you don't know who to pray to, that's okay. Or say, I don't know if you call it praying or whatever. All you have to do is say help. It's a little bit more forceful if you say it out loud, but even if you think it, and if you're open to it, I can almost guarantee you'll be surprised who shows up.
Yeah. Huh. Do you have a specific person? I know some people, some mediums, like you have a specific guide that comes, or all the time, or.
I have a whole team.
That doesn't surprise me.
And depending on what I need and when I need it, it depends on kind of who shows up. I have a being who feels like a big brother to me, and he's very much a protector, and we have lots of conversations, and he keeps me pretty safe. I even have some spirit animals who help me out too. I have, I hope he doesn't mind that I talk about him today. I have a wolf who helps me out immensely. And there's also my ancestors too, like my parents, my grandmother, my mother's mother, who I never met on earth. That doesn't matter. She passed away long before I did, but we came in as a team, and she has been around me from day one. When I was younger, she'd leave me flower smell, so I would know it was her. She doesn't do that so much now. I can see her and feel her better than I did when I was a kid, but I always knew that she was around. And it's kind of funny. I know that there's lots of misconceptions about our abilities and psychic abilities and all that kind of stuff. Empath, being able to feel things, was my strongest gift. The last to come, because speaking of fear, I was afraid of it, was the mediumship. It wasn't until I started doing psychic dinners with my team that people would come and say, I want to talk to so-and-so, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. And then finally I'm like, fine. I was probably a medium the whole entire time, but I wouldn't let myself think of it that way. So that was kind of the last gift to come. That was this, that I could read energy. I can read tarot cards. I was probably talking to dead people anyway. I just didn't call it that. It wasn't until finally I'm like, okay, you people keep asking. All right, I'll do it reluctantly. That the mediumship really came into being.
So that's interesting. So what's a psychic dinner?
So a psychic dinner is not so much now because of COVID, but before COVID happened, we, my team and I would go to various restaurants, and you would be given a little ticket that had one of our initials on it and a number. And that meant sometime during your dinner, you would get pulled for a 10-minute psychic reading. And then you would pay us money, and you'd have a 10-minute psychic reading, and then you'd go back to dinner or go back to your friends or whatever you wanted to do. And we used to do them quite a bit in various restaurants in the area between Augusta and Topsom. And we were really, really busy, but then COVID hit, and a lot of the restaurants that we used to go to closed. They're just not there anymore.
So you're saying that, I'm trying to understand what was coming through and what you were reluctant about. So you were talking with somebody who was sitting at the restaurant table with you.
Yes.
One of their people, maybe somebody who had passed, wanted to come through, but you weren't letting them because you were afraid?
I didn't want Uncle Charlie to wake me up in the middle of the night and say, hey, could you tell Aunt Betty this? Okay. But the funny thing is in this process, I moved to Hollowell, and it wasn't Uncle Charlie, but it was everybody else in the neighborhood. And I was like, I was a new girl in town. And to be honest, there are more dead people in Hollowell than there are alive people. And so they're like, woohoo, new girl in town. And she could hear us. So they'd be chit-chatting with me, and I'd be like, and they never chit-chat with us during the day. It's when it's quiet, we're trying to sleep. It's all that kind of stuff. I'd be like, guys, I have to go to bed. I have to get up and work in the morning. And when I first moved to Hollowell, I lived in a boarding house, and the boarding house itself was chock-a-block full of beings. And one of the former owners, way back in the day, it was a boarding house too. And she loved having me there because I energetically cleared the house. I kept things at bay. I kept the house safe because I needed to live in the house too. So she's like, game on. I love having you here. And I'd be like, yeah, that's great. But can you talk to me during the day? So between the house and the town, I finally, and the fact that so many people wanted to talk to their ancestors, that I'm finally like, okay, this really is okay. The universe never gives us more than what we are asking for. We might not be ready for it, but they don't give us any more than that we're asking for. And I'm very well protected. I'm not foolish enough to think that there aren't things out there, but my theory is if I don't go poke them, they're probably not going to bother me either. Right. So especially if I do my prayers and my protection and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I was going to ask you. So what do you do as a regular practice that kind of helps you be accessible and helps you be in that safe place?
I'm only really truly accessible when I'm working. Because you can't be in this high vibrational energy because you will burn your body out, because our human bodies are not designed to sit in that high vibrational energy. So things come and go, but if I am on, so to speak, I've actively purposely done something to do that. And by something, I mean, I say my prayers, I ground myself, I ask for protection, I ask that my energy is my energy and only my energy. So there's a series of things that I prepare myself for before anybody comes and has a reading, whether that's in person or on Zoom or wherever. And so I ground, balance, center myself, make sure that everything that I'm dealing with is divine white light, and everything that you're coming with is divine white light too. So I protect myself. I don't like that word, but I get myself ready. And then I use that divine white light to infuse you in. So everybody's safe. And you only speak to what is of the divine white light. And then when it's finished, I am getting better at, we call it opening the circle when things start. So we open up that portal, that sense of energy, because what happens is I raise my vibration as high as I can get it. Those beings on the other side lower theirs, so we kind of have a conversation in the middle. And when it's done, the goal is to finish saying a prayer. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all your help. There's a prayer that you say, and then I say the circle is now closed. So that is done. And not that you're ever unconnected from spirit, but you put some parameters around it. So there's prayers before, I am accessed during, and then I close it off at the end. And I do think that, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's one of the big misconceptions that John Q. Public has about us, that we are on all the time. And there's no way you could be, because it's like running a marathon. When I do fairs, I am sitting in that high vibrational energy, and I am exhausted the next day. It doesn't happen when I'm doing energy sessions like Reiki or Primus, because I'm getting just as much energy as my client is. But when I'm having a conversation with spirit, I'm channeling that information, I'm getting that information, and I'm giving it to you. So it's down and out. There's not that reciprocation. So that's a little bit rougher on my body. I love it, love it, love it, love it. But I know that I will be tired the next day. And I can tell you when spirit, it's like kind of like when Elvis leaves the building, same kind of thing. When spirit leaves the building, I get really cold and I'm starving, and I don't tend to eat meat very often, but on those days that I do fairs, I crave beef.
Wow.
That protein. Yeah.
So. Yeah. And so what I was going to say was, I understand that part of what you do is you teach other people to channel too.
That's true. Correct. I do teach psychic development classes on Zoom, and well, not right now because of COVID, but on Zoom. And I can do in person when that is allowed. I also teach energy classes, like I introduce you to your holistic energy and what that feels like and how to access universal energy. I do tarot card classes. I do a spiritual protection and cleansing class. There's a whole bunch of classes that I teach too.
Which we'll give your website at the end again, but
yes,
it's on there. So I think it's another misperception that not everybody is psychic, but I think, I'm guessing, so this is a question, that you would say everybody has psychic abilities, but we never, emphasize them or learn about them or bring them out. And what would you say about that?
I would definitely agree that anybody and everybody can do this, because that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are here to learn. We are never really disconnected to our spiritual selves. And the way that, oh, I can only speak to the United States, but the way that people have been indoctrinated or taught or socialized or any of those words, that there's a lot of fear around it, and people don't think there's a disconnection around it. Therefore, they don't feel like they can do this, that they need to go see somebody. And yeah, you can, but you do it all the time. You don't realize it. Like, you're thinking about somebody and the phone rings. Well, not nowadays because we all text each other, but you think something and then somebody will show up, or you think something and like, oh, I'd really like to buy a blue car. Well, what do you start seeing? Blue cars. Yeah. So yes, we all have that ability. It just depends on how well you develop your psychic abilities and your psychic muscles, because it's just like going to the gym. The more you work with it, the better it strengthens. But we all can do it.
Yeah. I wonder too if in your teaching people, is there anything that you're aware of with certain people, that they have certain qualities that would make them more conducive to learning than others?
The less afraid you are, the easier it is. And the less that you can get out of your human brain and get into your spiritual brain, the better off you are, because there really are two separate brains when you're doing this. Because you have to access your pineal gland, which is way, way down in the base of your head. And it's a very different part of your brain than if you are having a conversation like you and I are having a conversation. I kind of use this part of my brain more. If you can let go of trying, because the harder you try, forget it, because then you've accessed your human brain, and that's all bets are off. You let go of your human brain, as odd as that sounds, and allow that pineal gland or that deep, deep part of your brain to get switched on. That makes it much easier too. Yeah. But the biggest thing is trying too hard and being afraid, because afraid is a different, lower vibrational energy, and it's just energy, than being open is.
Right. So interesting. Yeah. I always called this brain the figuring it out brain,
Yes.
The struggle to figure it out, and it just gets in the way, right?
Oh, it does. It gets in the way.
Yeah. And so would what you're talking about, this part of your brain, more deal with your intuition, what you would call?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the inner knowing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you have a chakra point right in the middle of your forehead called the third eye. And that's where your psychic abilities live and your intuition lives. And then you have the crown chakra, which connects you to the universal source itself. And you also have lots of chakras that run off the top of your head too. And chakras are just where energy meets other energy points. And part of that you have so many off the top of your head is because your human body has to get used to that high vibrational energy. And if it hits the top of your head without kind of being funneled first, your human body will go, what are we doing?
Maybe you'll get a headache, right?
That's right. You will get a headache. And I have a friend of mine who was really silly about that. She said, I want to drop all the veils and I want to see everything. Well, she gave herself such a rip-roaring headache. She gave herself, she put herself to bed for 3 days. So yeah, don't be silly when you do this. Slow and steady definitely wins the race.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to your heroine's journey. So you have this bad experience, but you learn a lot from it, and you grow and continue to learn and develop your abilities and get a lot of help. You recognize how resilient you are, that you are a survivor, that you're powerful, that you can manifest, that you can teach other people to do the same thing. You develop all these classes because you're a pro at it, because of all your school teaching.
Correct.
So I think that brings us to me asking you, because we talked about this, that you're getting another call and you're sort of hovering over the threshold. And I think fear is involved here too, as far as.
Yes. Yes. And I can't give you a lot of the details, but that has moved forward. I, again, made another conscious decision that it's kind of funny how the universe kind of taps you on the shoulder. There was a class that I was going to take about this time last year, and I'm like, nope, can't afford it. And this year it rolled around again. I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to be in the exact same spot I was a year ago, because here I am. Yeah. And so I decided to take that class. It's working itself out. Money's coming, and to be able to afford it. And there's another class I'm taking too. But I am moving further away from my education, my day job. And my education job is 30 hours right now, and I'm dropping down to even less hours. So, and the deal is, the intention is that I am going to focus even more on my Heartfelt Energies business, so that can flourish and grow, but still have that steady income to get from this point to that point. So it took a while. It took a while for me to be able to do this, to be able to say, okay, I am going to do this, and I'm going to do this, because you're right. Fear was a part of it, because how am I going to make ends meet? What about insurance? What about this? What about that? And it's funny, my current supervisor at school congratulated me on my 12-year work anniversary from Heartfelt Energies. And all she did say was, congratulations on 12 years. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm thinking in my head, 12 years? Yeah, it's been a slow and steady climb, but I don't want to be here in another 12 years. And it's funny, like other things have happened, but it wasn't until I had my V8 moment when she said it that and she was heartfelt about it, and all that. And she knows that I do this part-time for now. But it's like, oh my God, 12 years. Well, we have to make some changes, because I don't want to be in the exact same spot I am going to be in 12 years. And it's really funny how, once I made that decision, how quickly the universe has manifested itself for me to be able to make more changes. Right. Step out of that fear as much as you can, because I can tell you it slows you down all the time, because it's a different resonance of energy. And to be more open, I don't always follow my own advice. And I'm always surprised, like when it does, like, oh my goodness, the universe is right. Here it is. So it's I said, I don't want to give too much away, but we're certainly moving towards that Heartfelt Energies thing full time.
Right. I really wanted you to speak about it, because there's a lot of women that are in that same place where they know they've decided what they really want to do, but they're worried about, can I afford it? And what about the steady paycheck? I'll lose that, but I really don't want to be there anymore. And
right,
fear is like screaming as loud as, because it's definitely scary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what's outweighing the fear right now is the great discomfort at work. I've outgrown it, and I can't not. And I'll be glad when I'm at that point where I'm not, like, I can move faster when I'm not excruciatingly uncomfortable. And I know that there's a lot of women and men too, for that matter too, that are excruciating uncomfortable, and it's really a point of, you're going to stay or you're going to go. And so, even though I'm a psychic and I know all the stuff, it still happens to us too.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of quotes about this, but Anais Nin, when the pain of staying closed up as a bud gets worse than blossoming, that's when you do it. But also, to your point, I'm a fan of Joseph Campbell's work, and he said, take one step towards the gods or the universe, and they take 10 steps towards you. So it's almost like, if you can get yourself to even take a small step in that direction and start seeing what comes to you, it gives you the impetus to keep going. And it sounds like it's happening for you.
Yes. Yes, I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited to see where this is going to go.
Right. Wow. Well, and I know what you talked to me about, what that means for you is the next level in your business is going to retreat centers and being a presenter and a workshop leader, doing more speaking and sharing more of what you've learned and more about your heroine's journey.
Yes. And it's interesting because with this group that I just belonged, I joined this it's called JVIC. I joined in January, and there was a point a few weeks ago that's like, ooh, ready or not, I'm in the big leagues now. And it's like, they're like, hey, wait, this is what you've been asking for. So let's see how you surf through this.
Right. Answered prayer. So
yes, answered prayer.
That's
very
great.
much so.
That's great. And I am really happy for you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
So what's kind of the people are listening, they've heard what you've done, what's happened to you, how things were hard, but how it has paid off because you learned so much. What would you want to be sure they heard from you, that if they forgot everything else, what do you want them to know, to hear?
Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time, and it took me a long time to be able to hear it, but everything will work out okay.
Yeah.
And ditch the fear.
Yeah.
Ditch the fear. If you can move through the fear, what's on the other side of that is exponentially, it's fear. Whoever said feel the fear and do it anyway was spot on. I think it's a book from way back when.
It's a book. I think I have.
Do you? I'm pretty sure I think it's a blue cover, at least the edition that I had many, many years ago. And I don't want to make light of it, because fear is very, very powerful. And in a lot of ways, it keeps us safe, because way back in the day, you didn't want to get eaten by that saber-toothed tiger. But even if you let go of it incrementally, there really isn't anything to be afraid of, but that might not be true. And with that said, understand and know in your head and know in your heart that everything will work out okay.
I think what you described to us when you talked about getting your energy where it needs to be in order to channel, and when you were refusing to do it, and how the fear energy vibrates at a very low, different.
Oh, it does.
And then you talked about gratitude, and that when you get into a gratitude mode, you raise your, I know, because I've been there and I do the gratitude practice. So it's such a good antidote to keep the fear from reappearing, is just start that gratitude engine going.
Right. Yeah. And I've said this to my students when they first started, they probably didn't either, but when I first started my first tarot class, I really wish that I had kept a journal, because my tarot card teacher said, keep a journal. You'll be amazed at how much you grow. So if you can take my advice, drop the fear, know that everything is going to be out all right, and start some kind of journal practice, you'll be amazed, even in 6 months to a year from now, how in such a different place that you are.
Wow. Good advice. Good advice. And so how can we find you? Anybody, what's the best way somebody listening to this can, and of course, in our show notes, we'll put all this information, but I'd like you just to say it too.
Sure. I do have my own website. It's called Heartfelt Energies. So it's www.heartfeltenergies.com. Heartfelt Energies is also on Facebook. I have my own business page, Heartfelt Energies, HEARTFELTENERGIES. I'm on Twitter, a teeny tiny little bit on Instagram, and even less on Clubhouse. But like I said, I do have the Facebook page, and I do have my website.
So if somebody's listening to this and they say, okay, well, I'm going to do what Susanna did, and I want to schedule a reading or something with you, Jeannie, the best way is through an email.
Through an email, that's heartfeltenergies@gmail.com. But my my website also has links that you can click to get into my calendar, and you can book your session and pay right there the same day. That's probably the easiest way. And there's several places on my website that says click here to book something with Jeannie. So
great. Okay. And again, this will all be written in the show notes. So I am just so pleased that you were able to be with me today. And I thank you, Jeannie Sullivan, very much for doing so.
Thank you very much for having me. I love this stuff. I could talk about this stuff all day, every day. It is certainly my passion and my certainly definitely part of my heroine's journey.
Right. Well, I, for one, wish you the biggest success in your moving off that threshold and keeping the fear at bay and letting the gods help you over and ratcheting things up where you want it to be. I feel very confident that you will not be in the same place a year from now.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate those kind words. Thank you.
You're welcome. And everyone listening, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another guest. And I thank you so much for being with us today. And remember that you are on the sacred heroine's journey, and you are a heroine. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast for Real Life Heroines with Susanna Liller. We're so glad you've joined us and would love to connect with you outside of the show. To find more about Susanna and how she can assist you in your heroine story, go to susannaliller.com/blog or find us on social media and YouTube by searching Susanna Liller. You can also email us directly at susanna@susannaliller.com. We'd love to hear from you. To be encouraged and inspired outside of the show and blog, check out You Are a Heroine, a retelling of the hero's journey written by your host and coach, Susanna, available on Amazon. Until the next time, be well, heroine.